Hello everyone, welcome to the course Society and Media. Today we will be discussing module number 2, which is titled Media Intervention and Change. The learning outcome of this module is to provide an understanding of, first, intervention as a concept and its relevance to our society. Second, media intervention and how it shapes our society and its impact. Third, we will be discussing some of the case studies related to media intervention. So, let us start with the first part of the module, which is understanding interventions. Intervention as a concept was emphasized by Stuart Hall in 1992, which was used to describe how setbacks of different transformational shifts in society, be it traditional to modern or from colonialism to socialism and capitalism, were dealt through some forms of mediation or intercession. It is described as a political or intellectual action which is simultaneous in accordance with change in the structure of society. It can be both individual or collective in nature. It emerges within the society when the process of change excludes specific institutional or cultural positions. Intervention is not universally applicable. Intervention has a time frame. It tends to exist only till the time the specific social or cultural conditions is included within the process of change in society. Again, Stuart Hall has emphasized on intervention as a necessary practice within the society. He also believed that intervention can take any form or shape. It is multidimensional in nature. It is important for the readers to keep in mind that the notion of intervention is entirely based on influence. Influence does have an important part in the overall process of intervention. However, the concept requires a broader social lens to under its influence on society. A layman understanding of the concept can be actions of one directed towards actions of another. This general understanding of intervention has been argued to be commonsensical as well as frequently observable within the society. Arguments also exist in terms of applying the notion of intervention in the broader sense. It leads to challenges in interpreting intervention as different social actions intervene one another, thereby creating a complex whole. It is important to understand intervention from specific lens which can be moral or legal or sociological, etc. Rossignol in 1968 has emphasized on intervention on the basis of two primary characteristics, one being convention breaking nature and the other is authority oriented nature. First case, if the society is undergoing a period of transition and existing traditional values are observed to hinder or restrict the process of change, then intervention that may take shape can be classified as one breaking existing conventions. For instance, in the case of India, the rise of urbanization has led to emergence of bilingual identities and breaking the convention of caste-based engagements, especially in the urban settlements. In the case of latter, authority-oriented intervention in India can be the campaign of forced sterilization in India during the 1970s as a strategy to control rising birth rate. Another example of authority-oriented intervention in India can be armed forces intervention for social and political order in the society. Understanding intervention from a global context, one may observe that different countries, both developed and developing, have experienced different degrees of economic intervention, varying from market-led intervention or state-controlled intervention or mixed intervention as well. Intervention as a concept should not be viewed as an anti-vox populi or authoritarian, etc. Its reference throughout the evolution of different societies has witnessed a clash between dominant and alternative forces, where the concept has been used to classify the parameters which fall under the broader lens of development and those that lie outside its purview. In fact, intervention needs to be understood as a broader concept which can be which can help in identifying the forces constantly overlapping each other for shaping different degrees of change within the society. For instance, the intervention regarding dominant and alternative viewpoints on gender, intervention for equality across sexes, intervention for limiting class and caste inequalities, cultural identities, and so on. In this very process, media as an institution has played a pivotal role as it helps in completing the circle of information, knowledge, and action. This circle is highly important for any kind of change observed within the society, from the era of Renaissance to Revolution regarding the notion of God. All have witnessed different degrees of intervention to determine the direction of change and progress. This was only possible through the flow of information from few to diverse hands in societies. Further intervention in contemporary sense is not confined to nation-state model. The rapid transformation that has been witnessed regarding the trade and labor migration, we can observe how international agencies can shape different degrees of intervention for both developed and developing countries. These actions are akin to the social, cultural, and political spheres of the society in terms of its impact. As a result, understanding intervention from a multidimensional perspective, social lens is important as it helps in identifying the historical connections related to it as well as the manner of the context for which it has emerged in the society. The next section will emphasize on the role of media for intervention as well as for theoretical frameworks which highlight media as an institution of intervention. Now, the next section is role of media intervention. Media intervention in layman's terms can be understood as an influence that any media agency creates or shapes in defining change in a specific direction. In other words, what media as an institution thinks to be apt for the society, it aims to bring about that by intervention at both policy level and practice. However, this nature of role of media has been argued as a highly commercialized or market-driven notion of media intervention. One must question whether media as an institution should intervene in the process of change or sensitize the citizens about the change within the society. Further, if media is playing the role of an intervening agency, then how can it be determined that the nature of intervention will be beneficial to every community residing in the society? Understanding role of media as an intervention agency should be not considered commonsensically or through the lens of market forces. It is important to connect media back to its roots as a mediating force between the citizens and the state, and whether its role as an intervening force complements its mediating role or contradicts it. Media intervention in the contemporary context has been largely seen from the market lens as a force which influences public opinion and intervening in terms of alternative viewpoints or alternative public spaces. Scholars have argued it to be a CNN effect from the humorous sense. CNN being an international news channel, it has created different narratives which can justify its intervention regarding state action or state policies of different nations. An apt example of international media intervention can be the reporting of political events. For example, the reporting of Jammu and Kashmir versus the Indian news reporting. Political analysts in India have argued that intervention being shaped through international news agencies is a distorted view and fractured due to the hollow facts. Further, the interventions from media can be easily identified in terms of public opinions or outlooks within the society. For example, Howley in 2013 has taken the example of political satires in US, where national media agencies have intervened in the broadcasting of political humor addressed towards the party in power. The space for representation has been denied by these agencies due to their allegiance with the political party in power and also due to the ownership factor. In this context, Howley in 2013 has questioned the intervention by media and what kind of outcome it derives and it is creating within the society. On the other hand, Howley has complimented media agencies regarding their role in public health and welfare. The rising levels of sexually transmitted disease, especially in the minority communities across USA, saw media making a humanitarian intervention on sensitizing the public about quality healthcare and awareness about HIV/AIDS. The argument that is presented by Howley has highlighted the fact that media intervention can be understood as a constant tussle between the dominant and the alternative media spaces, where one is trying to topple the other for making development way more inclusive in society. The other set of arguments that exist in terms of media intervention can be Koch's principle of media, where different media institutions can collectively collaborate to intervene for social and economic growth. Such a trend has been observed in contemporary settings through digital media, where a variety of alternative platforms and raising voices and on human rights, cultural acceptance and social equality have come up. These spaces in turn, to some extent, have created a pressure on the dominant media agencies to focus their attention on these relevant public matters. Media also has been argued to shape citizen reporting, which has created scope for both social and political interventions. From a theoretical perspective, the agenda setting theory, through priming and framing, elaborates the role of media as an intervening agency more ordinarily. However, the key argument that emerges from the theoretical debates is the focus or the objectives of media and how well do they complement the aspect of ownership with the changing ownership patterns across different media agencies and the greater influence of market forces. Media, particularly the dominant media, are seen as mouthpieces of the market forces, which intervene only to safeguard their revenue channels or their market share. On the other hand, alternative media in the form of community radio, digital media, etc., are seen to play an active role as a welfare-oriented intervening agencies, which aim to bring about policy or ground-level transformation by shaping the public opinion towards the welfare and intervening if and only if the process of development is not inclusive. The similar trends can be seen in the case of India as well. For example, in the case of India, modernization has witnessed a cultural change within the society. One may argue that there has been exponential influence of westernization on the Indian society. However, media has intervened to safeguard the cultural identity of India's traditional roots. Folk forms of culture have given the space to shape and to represent themselves in the era of modernization. It has been witnessed in the case of radio, especially community radio, television experiments, the Site experiment of 1975 and DD, and today's digital media. Alternative cinema can also be seen as a format of media which is shaping intervention for inclusive development. Taking India's struggle for independence, print media as a form of alternative media, such as Sambad Kaumudi or the Kesari, etc., has helped in shaping intervention against social evils and promoting social integration for overall development. Media scholars have long argued that media also provides a scope for humanitarian interventions, where information channeled to safeguard the human rights of the citizens. Interventions by the media has been observed first in terms of maintaining peace regarding religious conflicts. However, there are instances of media where it has instigated sensitive religious matters on the grounds of sensationalism. in addition to the debates on media intervention, also highlight the issue of media trial. Media trial, where media's narrative takes precedence over the facts in determining the guilty. In India, many cases of media trials have been observed due to market influence and existing ownership patterns. Primarily due to this problem, questions have been raised whether media should possess the power to intervene in any matters of society, or whether it should only remain confined to being the mouthpiece for the state and citizenry. Now let us move to the specific case studies of media which will provide a different outlook of media regarding media intervention. First, let us discuss the Jessica Lal murder case, media's intervention for a social cause, that is justice. The Jessica Lal murder case of 1998 gained a lot of media attention post the verdict given by the trial court, which acquitted the accused. The case gained a lot of public attention and support through media's follow-up and continuous reporting about the developments in the case. Media in this specific case has helped fulfilling its welfare objectives by shaping the public pressure and compelling the legal system of India to again go through the matter, and follow-up media helped highlighting the potholes in the investigation, the nature of the investigation that was carried out by the police. In this context, media's intervention played a positive role in ensuring that justice is ensured to the victim. In the second case, we take the COVID-19 reporting by Indian media and the infodemic, the reporting done by the most Indian news channels regarding the global pandemic of COVID-19 witnessed a lot of criticism due to their dissemination of the hollow facts. The pandemic of COVID-19 began to be identified as an infodemic where unverified information was presented as facts and given legitimation by the media. It involved detailed about coronavirus, its spread, its symptoms, possible reasons for the infection, and the medical remedy. In the most Indian news channels, especially those covering the local news, presented information in the form of facts which were unchecked and shaped a different outlook towards the pandemic. Such a reporting, or this form of reporting, created further confusion, panic amongst the citizens, as they were devoid of the correct information regarding this emergency situation. This form of media intervention by the media has received a lot of flake from various sections of society, as it shaped a widespread panic and confusion in terms of determining which information was factually correct or which was rational for saving a human life. The second case study is about COVID-19 reporting by the Indian media, or of how it became not only a pandemic but an infodemic. WHO said that we are not only fighting a pandemic but an infodemic. The reporting done by the most Indian news channels regarding the global pandemic of COVID-19 witnessed a lot of criticism due to its dissemination of the hollow facts. For example, how many minutes or how many seconds should we wash our hands? Which mask to use, or whether the N95 was safe or whether the cloth mask was safe, for how many times we have to use a sanitizer in the day, how Indian remedies or some of the spices could cure COVID-19. The pandemic of COVID-19 began to be identified as an infodemic, where unverified information was presented as facts. It was also given legitimization by the media. They constantly kept on coming with the kits. They promoted kits. It involved details about coronavirus, its spread, its symptoms, possible reasons for infection, and medical remedy. You might have remembered a lot of people cancelled their newspaper subscription as they thought that little newspaper would be spreading COVID-19. A lot of kits were promoted in media as the vaccine or the remedy for COVID-19, which was an unverified claim. The COVID-19 pandemic and its symptoms also created a confusion amongst the masses. They were not understanding the impact of such news reaching the masses, which was already in pandemic, as this emergency was the first pandemic of the 21st century. We should remember that how news was spread, that how parcels or online deliveries could spread the pandemic. In most cases, the Indian news channels, especially those covering the local news, presented information in the form of facts which were unchecked and shaped a different outlook towards the pandemic. It also led to a large-scale migration of the laborers from the cities because they got no work to do because of the scare of this pandemic. This form of reporting created further confusion and panic amongst the citizens as they were devoid of the correct information regarding the emergency. All kinds of messages were circulated on WhatsApp, on Facebook regarding the viruses. There was so much information overload. The form of intervention by the media has received a lot of flake from various sections of society as it shaped widespread panic and confusion in terms of determining which information was factually sound and rational for saving the human life. How much should be your oxygen levels was determined by the media instead of the medical experts. One of the reasons pointed out was the growing reliance of sensationalism of news and the information. As a result, media intervention in this context was very, very counterproductive. Now we come to a positive example. However, it is a result because media completely ignored or largely ignored rural India. The example is from People's Archive of Rural India, PARI. PARI is a digital media platform designed by P. Sainath, an award-winning journalist in 2014 who focuses on, or the platform focuses on rural journalism. Now, what is the need to have a specific platform for rural journalism? Rural journalism has been ignored or largely ignored by the mainstream media due to the market pressures or due to the pressures from the owners or the subscribers that they want to know only about the urban India, the rising India or the shining India. The pressures that market gives them, or they should cover the news that gives them advertising, is the reason why there was a need for PARI as an initiative, a special initiative for rural India. Rural India only comes to foray when there are crime or political stories, but there is a much larger population which resides in rural India, and their issues are different from urban citizens of the country. A large part of population is dependent on farming, and their issues needs to come on the front pages of the newspapers or the national prime time bulletins, but they are completely missing. Thus, there was a requirement for such a platform. The platform that focuses specifically on the issues related to farming, production crisis, minority and individual community issues, rural-urban conflicts. We just saw in the pandemic that there was a large-scale migration of laborers, of a lot of workers from different industries back to their villages because the urban India could not cater to them during the pandemic as well. They went back to their homes because they felt that it was safe and farming could sustain them, or the small odd jobs that they get in rural India could sustain them. However, the lockdown in the urban India could not provide them the basic amenities, or they could not earn their living while the lockdown was on in the country. One of the prime highlights of this platform is its vernacular orientation and access to relevant materials which help in improving rural livelihoods, which help in empowering the citizens of rural India. The platform has garnered a lot of media attention for its initiatives in getting farmers legal redressals, as well as monitoring the government records of the rural folks such as Aadhaar, record of the rights, ration card, etc. PARI as a platform has done extensive work regarding intervention for water conservation initiatives, utilization of agricultural practices. This again highlights how media's intervention can promote the welfare within the society. there is only one Pari in India. We require a lot of Paris in India to document the rural lives, to document their problems, to leave them to initiatives which are for them, or welfare schemes, to give even rural India information about a lot of Government of India schemes that are specifically run for rural people, whether it is livelihood schemes, or whether it was water conservation schemes, or whether it is for the education of the rural youth or skill development. But that part that media should play is missing, especially in the mainstream media, which focuses on the urban consumers, consumers that could pay for that newspaper, or the consumers which the advertisers want to cater. So we need to look at how media is shaped by the market forces. Thus, it is important to understand media from different perspectives and how media plays a role in the intervention or as an intervening agent to provide welfare to the society. With this, we come to the end of this module. In this module, we have discussed a lot of concepts related to media, which is media as a concept and it's relevant to our society. Media and as an intervening agent, or how it can be an impetus for change in society, how it can have a positive impact on society. But the factors also, we also studied the various factors that determine whether media would be a change agent in a particular story and whether it can play a negative role. We have discussed ideas like media trial, we have discussed its welfare approach, we have also discussed the factors that influence media and its role in society, how it can play a very, very positive role in securing rights of the citizens and in creating opportunities for youth, or in getting rights for minorities. And we have also discussed some of the case studies related to media intervention, whether it was in Jessica Lal case or whether media's reporting of the COVID-19 and how it created a panic instead of being a reassuring agent. And the last one being a digital initiative by the award-winning journalist P. Sainath. We discussed all these specific case studies so that you can have a broad idea of how media acts as an intervening agent. Thank you. All the best.